This is the Iron Will Report for the week of June 2nd. In this week's report, David Johnston refuses to answer the House, the truth about sudden adult death syndrome, Target and Bud Light lose a combined $31 billion to woke policies, Parks Canada is planning to rewrite our history, and much more. This is the news that mainstream media won't report, and our government doesn't want you to hear. On March 15th, Trudeau appointed his longtime family friend David Johnston as the special rapporteur on the investigation into Chinese interference in the last two federal elections. Interference that included the Trudeau Foundation's 2016 misrepresentation of a $140,000 donation from Beijing as a gift from a Canadian donor. The donation, in fact, was from an offshore company affiliated with state-run China Central Television and the Communist Youth League. The facts of Johnston's association with the Trudeau family are now well known. Mr. Johnston's family used to vacation with the family of former Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. This means that Justy played with Johnston's 5 daughters as a child. In a 2010 CBC interview, Johnston also recalled the many excellent conversations he had with then Governor General David Johnston over dinner, an event which occurred frequently, according to Trudeau. We had great conversations around dinner tables around all sorts of things, Trudeau told CBC Radio in an interview marking Johnston's 2010 appointment as Governor General. When questioned recently about his relationship with Johnston, Turd changed his story, dismissing the relationship with a single reference. "I saw him a few times as a kid," said Trudeau. "I got to know him after he was appointed Governor General by Stephen Harper." After he was appointed in 2010, you went on vacations with his family as a kid, and you had frequent dinners with him after his appointment as Governor General. But it doesn't stop there. Johnston was appointed as a member of the Trudeau Foundation in 2018, the foundation which sits at the center of this obvious corruption. And he was an active member, as is shown by this article on the Foundation's website from last year, where David Johnston was heavily involved in the appointment of scholarships. But it goes even deeper than that. Johnston is also the founder and chair of the Rideau Hall Foundation, a charity which has received $3 million in donations from the government. The very government he's supposed to be investigating, while he himself refuses to testify. David Johnston refuses to take questions by MPs over his work at the Trudeau Foundation. Members of the Commons Public Accounts Committee threatened last week to issue a summons for Johnston, a first for a retired Governor General. Said Conservative MP John Williamson, "We have a meeting scheduled for a week today with individuals who have been involved with the Trudeau Foundation. I regret to inform you all, I have 3 who have declined, including the Right Honourable David Johnston. The other reluctant witnesses are Edward Johnson, chair of the foundation, and Mel Capp, a foundation mentor." "It has been frustrating," said Chair Williamson. "We have no one willing to appear." A parliamentary summons has the weight of a court order, though it is rarely enforced. Parliament last jailed an uncooperative witness in 1913, when a Montreal contractor was held 3 months at Ottawa's Carleton County Jail for refusing to take questions on payments of kickbacks to federal officials. In part, as a result of Johnston's refusal to testify, the Commons voted Wednesday 174 to 150 to fire David Johnston as Cabinet's special rapporteur on Chinese subterfuge. Johnston rejected the vote, saying he didn't answer to MPs. Doesn't answer to MPs? Said Johnston on his refusal to step down, "I deeply respect the right of the House of Commons to express its opinion about my work going forward, but my mandate comes from the government." Forgive me if I misunderstand how our government is supposed to work, Mr. Johnston, but the House of Commons, consisting of our elected representatives, is the government. It appears that David Johnston, along with a number of others in Ottawa, are under the mistaken impression that the government is now our would-be supreme leader, Justin Trudeau. In news that will surprise only 27% of Canadians, A poll released just yesterday revealed that 73% of Canadians do not find David Johnston credible as an impartial party in his position as special rapporteur. Unknown causes, sudden adult death syndrome, SADS. At least the acronym is right. It used to be called sudden arrhythmic death syndrome, as revealed by Dr. William Mackus in an interview I did with him at the Reclaiming Canada conference in Victoria last weekend. Sudden arrhythmic death syndrome used to be literally 1 in a million. This would mean that in Canada, we would expect to see approximately 40 cases a year in the entire country, and most of those people would have been over 50. The number of medical personnel alone who have died in the past year from SADS is approaching that number, and now it's affecting children, as Dr. Mackus has reported on his Substack. High school and college students dying in their sleep from heart attacks. When I was a paramedic almost 40 years ago, a case of a young person dying in that manner would have resulted in a full autopsy, if not a police investigation. Dr. Mackus noticed the remarkably high number of cases when he started following the catastrophic increase in doctor deaths from unknown causes since 2021. A large number of them were dying in their sleep from heart attacks, despite the fact that they were mostly under the age of 50. My interview with Dr. Mackus will be released next week at ironwillreport.com. 2 weeks ago, I reported on Trudeau's government responding to the US lifting their ban on unvaccinated travelers by raising airport security fees. These fees are, in fact, an unofficial tax. Thanks to Blacklock's reporter, we now have more information on this. Despite a 33% increase in security fees, the National Airlines Council warns passengers should not expect quicker airport screening. Fees intended for covering security costs represent an annual profit for the Government of Canada. Said Jeff Morrison, CEO of the Airlines Council, "I wish I could say these increases in fees would lead to better service for both the airlines and passengers. I cannot say that. For example, with the increase in the air security charge, that is money that goes into general revenue." The Omnibus Budget Bill C-47 adopted by the Cabinet raises the air travelers' security charge retroactively to May 1st from $15 to $20 for round-trip domestic flights, $13 to $17 for US flights, and $26 to $34 for international flights. CEO Morrison told the Senate National Finance Committee that all of that funding goes to general revenue. "That's a direct carryover to the passenger," said Morrison. "In other words, that charge gets automatically added to the ticket price. In fact, when you pay for an airline ticket, you can see that carve-out and what that fare is. Airlines don't have a say in that." In addition to security revenues generated in pre-pandemic years of $872 million annually, the 33% hike will increase revenues by $264 million next year, according to a Budget Office report released May 9th. This adds up to over $1 billion going into government coffers for general use, not for airport security. A 2016 statutory review of the Canada Transportation Act recommended that security fees be charged at cost. Federal regulators typically collect more in fees than they paid for security. In a recent report, the government said security charges have exceeded security screening costs by an average of 18% since 2010. By now, even those of you who don't live in Alberta will have heard about the majority victory won in Monday's election by Danielle Smith and the United Conservative Party of Alberta. Attempts to rig the election through voting machines were foiled by a hand count required by Smith's government. I was notified by a viewer that his brother worked at an election polling station where ballots were counted by 5 volunteers. Apparently, this was the practice at all stations. Some in Alberta were surprised by how long it took to get the final tally, with Smith's victory being announced well after 11 p.m. The reason was the hand count. Some ridings were very close, and I personally have no doubt that if the machines were allowed to determine the winner, Smith would have either lost, or at the very least, would have been left with an impotent minority government. Instead, I believe that the UCP victory is the beginning of the end for globalist tyranny in Canada. When the rest of the country goes insane again, and it will by late next year or early 2025, the rest of Canada will be able to point to Alberta where there will be no mandates, and where the people and the economy are doing fine, and demand that their provincial governments follow suit. What the globalists absolutely do not want is a control group that will show their agenda for what it is, nothing but smoke and mirrors constructed on outright lies.
We need to come together, no matter how we have voted, to stand shoulder to shoulder against soon-to-be announced Ottawa policies that would significantly harm our provincial economy. Now, we have been made aware that in the coming weeks, Justin Trudeau is planning on bringing forward new restrictions on electricity generation from natural gas that will not only massively increase your power bills, but will also endanger the integrity and reliability of our entire power grid, which we rely on during our cold and dark Alberta winters. In addition, the Prime Minister is already ready to introduce a de facto production cap on our oil and gas sector that, if implemented, will result in tens of thousands of jobs lost, tens of billions in lost investment, damage our province's fiscal position, and bring economic hardship to Albertans. Now, I've made myself clear on this matter to the Prime Minister in person and in public, but I feel we need to do it again. Let me be clear, this is not a road we can afford to go down. If he persists, he will be hurting Canadians from coast to coast, and he will strain the patience and goodwill of Albertans in an unprecedented fashion. And as Premier, I cannot, under any circumstances, allow these contemplated federal policies to be inflicted upon Albertans. I simply can't, and I won't.
Our own Not Notly ad campaign received tens of thousands of views on social media in the weeks leading up to the election. I like to think we had some small part to play in the Conservative victory. A victory, by the way, that is apparently very disappointing to state-sponsored media. A CTV reporter made a Freudian slip on live television.
Did I just hear CTV say they hoped the NDP would get more seats?
Certainly, we are seeing the NDP not make the gains that we were hoping and we were wanting.
And here I thought the media was supposed to be apolitical. The irony of me saying media is supposed to be apolitical is not lost on me, but I'm not really a reporter. I'm a freedom fighter. I only act as a reporter to bring you the truth that they won't report. As a result, I will remain unapologetically conservative. Since launching the Iron Will Report, we've offered Centurion-level members access to the same research report that my team of volunteer researchers prepares for me every week. I draw my stories from this report. But that report, which was in the form of a downloadable PDF, was always intended to be a stopgap measure until I had time to construct something better. As of today, our new searchable news database has gone live. In just the 2 weeks since the system was set up and made accessible to my volunteers, over 550 articles have been entered in a wide variety of categories. You can search by keyword and category, as well as limiting results by date. This is version 1 of the system, and further improvements will be coming. In addition, I will shortly be making a change to our membership structure. Originally, ironwillreport.com had 3 levels of membership. I dropped the highest level shortly after the site was launched, as some of the value I had wanted to bring to that level, biannual symposiums, simply turned out to be too challenging to arrange with my limited resources. I'm figuring all this stuff out as I go along. While I studied journalism almost 40 years ago, I never worked as a journalist until the last 2 years, when I started doing interviews, originally on our strongandfreecanada.org platform. After much reflection, I decided to further simplify things. Shortly, I'll be dropping Centurion-level memberships, and all services will be available at the lowest and soon-to-be only level of membership, available for just $9.95 per month, or a savings of 20% with an annual membership. This will include access to the searchable news database. For those who have current Centurion-level memberships, when the change happens, the system will automatically add time to your current cycle, adding either a month or a year depending upon how you paid for your membership. After that, you'll be billed at the new lower rate. That's all for this week's free version of the Iron Will Report. If you want to help us spread the truth, please subscribe to our channel, then like and share this video. Social media algorithms promote content based upon how many followers, likes, and shares they get. So please take just a few moments to do that and help us share the truth with others. In this week's members version at ironwillreport.com, in a further attack upon our national identity, Parks Canada is set to rewrite some 200 historical plaques found guilty of colonialism. Dr. James Lyons Wheeler proves that a very large percentage of COVID deaths were in fact bacterial lung infections caused by ventilators. Europe continues its green insanity by banning cars and culling cows. Bud Light and Target together lose $31 billion to their woke policies. The increasing misuse of the word genocide by media and government. Amazon is fined over $30 million for 2 separate privacy violations. The first lawsuit against the U.S. Department of Defense over the COVID vaccines. A U.S. representative makes a very clever move that could result in blocking CBDCs for our neighbors to the south. John Cleese tells the woke what they can do with their censorship of his humor. And Project Veritas is set to spiral into the ground after betraying their viewers. This past week, I released the first of 5 in-person interviews I did at the Reclaiming Canada conference in Victoria. My interview with Freedom Convoy organizer Chris Barber was released on Wednesday. Coming up next week, interviews with Dr. William Mackes on the increasing rate of deaths from unknown causes, and a very personal interview with Brian Peckford on his life and his choice to fight for our freedoms at the age of 80. The week after, we'll release my interviews with immunologist Dr. Stephen Pellick and John Rustad, leader of the BC Conservative Party. Memberships at ironwillreport.com support our work at Strong and Free Canada to recover and defend our rights and freedoms. Get the truth that mainstream media won't report and our government doesn't want you to hear for just $9.95 per month with a 15-day free trial. I will never accept corporate or government funding in any form. Our efforts at ironwillreport.com to bring you the truth are entirely funded by our members. This is your guarantee that we're working for you. Help us to spread the truth and support our fight for our rights and freedoms. Sign up today for a 15-day free trial. Unsubscribe anytime in the first 15 days and you will not be charged. You are also not locked in and can cancel your subscription at any time.